Good to be joined by the team here. Today we're unpacking what it takes to achieve every level of CyberCert against SMB 1001 and why it only works when customers, specialists, partners and vendors all do it together. Ryan Ettridge here, co-founder and CEO of CyberCert, the certification body for SMB 1001, an international dynamic industry standard specifically designed for SMBs. From the flower shop owner to the $100 million tech company, CyberCert is the safety certificate revolution that is designed to help SMBs focus on what they do best, which is running their business. But like a safety certificate in the motor industry, it only works when everyone works together. So I'm pleased to be joined today here by James Davis at the TSP Advisory. Hey, James.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Luke Irwin from Aegis Cybersecurity. Hey, Luke.
G'day, how's it going?
Wayne Small from the Cyber Advisory.
G'day, mate. How you doing?
Smallsy. Hey, and Fee from Assuredly, our independent verification organization represented today. Hey, Fee.
Hi.
Very good. Good to see you all. So we're going to run through a little bit of a structure here today, and we really want to unpack the journey of what CyberCert and SMB 1001 means for you and the different roles that you play in bringing this to life so that MSPs, technical support specialists, SMBs, insurers, and everyone else who actually plays a part in this journey can get a bit of a feel of what it's like to move through the different stages. Relatively informal today, team. I'm going to start with you, James. Tell us about your role, where you fit into the CyberCert and SMB 1001 ecosystem.
So there's a few sides to it. I obviously educate the tech partners on operating better and growing their businesses so they can help their end clients. I'm also the one that has gone through the process as a smaller business, but isn't a technical minded person to implement the stages of the levels of the CyberCert framework through SMB 1001. And I went from bronze to silver to gold to platinum to diamond, and I got to see all the ins and outs while I'm not actually doing it myself. So it should be a fun process to talk through today.
Beautiful. So you were the guinea pig in this case to test out the platform and how it interacts and test Fiona out as we get to the two higher levels.
Very much so. I got to see it all.
So just to recap, so you advise two MSPs and technical support specialists. That's your primary role as TSP advisory.
That's what I live and breathe all day, every day. Help them with their operational practices, how they govern their business, how they go to market, how they deliver their services. And I've been doing that for quite a while. I stay out of the technical side, but it's all about the sales, operations, and finance.
Nice. Yeah, importantly, because we have quite the range of technical support specialists in the CyberCert ecosystem, reach out to James for some of that advice because, everyone is at different maturity journeys, not just of their cybersecurity expertise, but of course their business maturity as well. So that's really cool. Thank you, James. Luke, tell us where you fit into the ecosystem.
So I'm an independent cybersecurity advisory company. So I specialize in fractional CISO, governance, risk and compliance, implementing various flavors of GRC. I explicitly avoid the hands-on tools. So when I partner with MSPs to implement the SMB 1001 framework and other things, I'll issue instructions on how they need to go and gather the evidence or make a configuration or design something to achieve the outcomes to align to the standard. And that's exactly what I did with James and his organization. They're doing the diamond or the bronze, the platinum and the diamond. And we went down that path because, well, as I've said time and time again, I'm the guy who did diamond first, and I wanted to demonstrate it could be done and how the value it brings to the security space of the small businesses.
Yeah, very cool. So the more technical, technical procedural stuff, not the actual hands-on technology integrations.
Yeah. I know how to do it. I make a choice not to because I don't want to be the person in somebody else's environment. They're an MSP. They have technical proficiency to be able to execute on what's needed, and I can guide and support and advise. But I'm working with clients direct. I'll work with their MSP to support them doing that. I know how to do it. I just don't want to do it because this is the 25th year in the tech industry, and quite frankly, I'm done making configurations.
Yeah, very cool. So that's a bit of solution architecture, engineering advice, policy procedures, the things that MSPs traditionally might be good at the break, fix, and integration of the technical things, but don't have the MSSP or the security consulting expertise.
Spot on. Yeah.
Beauty. Thanks, Luke. Wayne, tell us where you fit into this ecosystem, specifically in the context of today.
So my company, the Cyber Advisory, is very similar to Luke's in terms of we're an independent advisor that helps customers alongside their MSP to become compliant to things like SMB 1001. In this particular instance, I'm also filling the role of being the MSP for James. I'm handling all of the hands-on technical side of things to make sure that they're compliant to everything that Luke says we need to do. And that comes from a background of over 30 years in the MSP world. I had my own MSP for 25 years. So I've been there, done that. I don't do this MSP role typically anymore. I've done it with James. We've got support arrangements in place that James and I do. We help each other out with things. And in this role, I am fulfilling that MSP role.
Nice. And for those that don't know, tell us about SMB as well, SMB Pro, and what you contribute to there.
Yeah, SMB Pro is an industry association that is 170 odd businesses that are SMB resellers, MSPs, TSPs, whatever term you wish to use. And I fulfill the role of the technology evangelist there. I have for the last couple of years been the CEO, and we've seen some massive growth within SMB professionals. But it's an environment in which you can share information quite freely and willingly without worrying that the guy next to you is going to go and steal your customer. It's an environment where we have codes of ethics, we have best practices and so forth. And so I fill a technical role there now, which is great. Technology evangelism, that's what I do. I love preaching about technology to anyone who wants to listen.
Yeah, very cool. And so that's again the community, the power of the community that this MSP and the SMBs need to rely on for this to come to life. Thanks, Wayne. Fee, tell us where you fit into the CyberCert and SMB 1001 ecosystem.
So I'm the founder of Assuredly, a software platform that provides any business the opportunity to assess themselves against all tiers of the SMB 100 standard, so from tier 1 to tier 5. And then personally, Long is one of the independent verification auditors Assuredly is an independent verification organization, and I'm the auditor. So I provide support to CyberCert to ensure that the level 4 and level 5, so diamond and platinum certifications are audited. And during the audit process, our goal is really to help companies, whether it be MSPs or their clients or direct to businesses, that those businesses achieve or maintain their certification. And our goal is to do our best to help them achieve the certification within the context of an independent, impartial assessment.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Fee. So that rounds out really this process of how do we scope this thing? How do we integrate this thing? How do we build the technical and non-technical components of the people, process, and tech that SMB 1001 is made up of? And then how do we independently verify it at the higher 2 levels as well to give that range of SMBs that we talked about, from the flower shop owner through to the $100 million tech company across the world as an international certification, bring that to life. So I would love to hear just a little bit more context for the viewers and the listeners. What does CyberCert mean to you? And this is an open question to anyone. What does CyberCert mean to you in your context?
I'll jump in first. So I play across the range of frameworks, be it SMB 1001, ISO, SOC, NIST, pick a framework, I've worked with it. Advantage that the SMB framework has, it's prescriptive. If we look at the things like ISO 27001, 42001, SOC 2, things like that, they're risk and scope based. You need a person or a team of people to evaluate what the risks are, how to address them, how to manage it, how to policy around that. And you have to have high levels of management buy-in in order for it to work. Otherwise, the auditors tend to not like that at all. The advantage with the SMB 1001, as I said, it's prescriptive. Thou shall, thou will, thou must. It is very clear as to what you need to do. Because the standard's constantly undergoing revision, it's able to address little gaps and tweaks that are found. Like we found one recently with a specific wording. We're having conversations with DSI on how to fix that. But it makes it very clear that you do this and you do this and you do this, and then you've hit a reasonable level. To advocate that you should always be looking to do more, but if this is all you do, you've hit for a small business, a reasonable position. And if you want to do more, great. If you don't, then you've got enough.
Nice. Yeah. So the removal of subjectivity is a key benefit of SMB 1001 and CyberCert, which means it can scale. So supply chains is a big interest and context for certification in SMB suppliers, because the enterprise can rely on the certificate, because it's not about then having to dive into the statements of applicability or others. They can actually rely on the certificate. Nice. Anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah. One of the things that got me interested in SMB 1001, 2 years ago now, was the journey that it gets customers on. Okay. If I was a small business and I wanted to achieve a cybersecurity qualification, the only types of things on the market were Essential 8 or ISO. Okay. And they are seen by many as endpoints and destinations. We all know cybersecurity is a journey that never stops. And the way in which SMB 1001 has been structured with multiple levels allows the end customer to start on that journey to start with, and then start to scale up. Just like James has simulated with going through all of the levels, it allows a customer to start at the base level and get on the bus, as I put it. Once they're on the bus, they get onto that journey, and we start to see a culture change within the business. And that culture change is, in my mind, one of the biggest things. It's not all the technical controls. It's the culture change that has to take place in the mindset of the operators and the owners for them to be more mindful of cybersecurity and security in general. And so I love the way that that gets us on that journey. The second thing I love about SMB 1001 is quite simply the fact that there are updates to it every year, guaranteed, without fail. Attackers that are out there are not going to use the same methods of attack next year as they do this year. And standards that update, say, every 3 or 4 years just can't keep pace with the risk environment that we face. SMB 1001 gives us that opportunity by fine-tuning it to what we're seeing in the market. Now, with my SMB IT professionals hat on, I also sit on the steering committee that helps provide the input from the SMB IT professionals members into the standard. And one of the things I'm very proud of is that a large portion of the 2026 version was suggestions made by the SMB IT professionals members that have been accepted by the steering committee and is now part of the standard. And the reason I'm so excited about that is not from an egotistical perspective, but because it matters. It matters to the end customer. If we sit there and sit in an ivory tower and don't hear what's going on, then the standard won't work. And I don't see that at all with SMB 1001. It's very much ears wide open, willing to listen and take on board all of the changes that are needed to be made. So there are a couple of things that I love about SMB 1001 and why I think it's, in my mind, the standard for the SMB space.
Very cool. Yeah. So the D and DSI is dynamic, and it's a really cool example of it is community powered as much as it is steered by the representatives on that steering committee. And the journey that you mentioned, getting on the bus, is actually really powerful, because the bronze and silver that James will talk us through shortly actually applies to everyone still. Like, as the standard is designed, it integrates and transcends each of the levels as it goes up the maturity. So the fundamentals, like we've seen in Essentials and others, everyone needs to do. So at least if they can shut the front door at the two common levels, the lowest levels, then, you know, we've started to raise the bar for SMBs worldwide. So I love that. Anything else to add to that, James or Fee?
I think for me, I built a platform, assuredly, and the value behind that, or the value our company has, is driven around helping everyone. And the reason for that is because I worked in a market, and like many people in security do, where there was a lot of security questionnaires going around, and security control and what was expected of companies and supply chains is really driven by the bigger companies who are sending out huge amounts of security questionnaires. To the point where I went to the biggest security conference in the world and people were walking around with T-shirts saying not another security questionnaire. And so you'd be a small business and you would get 300-400 questions from your bank or whoever you're providing a service to. And it was really, really hard for those companies. So there was a lot of checkbox exercise. So we built that platform to the Assuredly platform to help all businesses participate in that supply chain. And when I met the CyberCert guys a couple of years ago, you know, launching this, the values were the same. They wanted to make it accessible. They wanted to make it affordable. They wanted it to be more of a journey and really it be inclusive. And so I hope that will stay the same over time. And you know, I understand that, and I'm an IRAP assessor and a lead auditor of 27001. So I do complex consulting and complex audit work for very large, complex systems. And so when I look at CyberCert, I look at the DSI standard, the SMB 100 standard, and I go, well, there's only 6 controls and they can get a certificate. Sure, people can sit back and go, well, what's the 6 controls? But many small businesses will find getting 6 controls and having a little certificate a really powerful first step, because there's nothing worse, and I've seen it time and time again, when you have a business who's got a security audit or consultant come in and leave them with 100 actions, which they really don't know how to implement. So I think that's what I think about the CyberCert program and the DSI standard. I think it was well aligned to our vision of being more inclusive, a security community being more inclusive and being pragmatic and practical and having those steps. In terms of the black and white controls, there's pros and cons to that. And, you know, companies will find it hard sometimes to implement a control, but I do understand why, because if you're trying to reach a very broad audience and a lot of businesses, there has to be a way in which to keep it cost affordable. It needs to be yes or no. Do you have that or do you don't? Do you not? The reason why 27001 is a more expensive standard to implement is because there is a lot more governance involved, and that is for more complex and larger systems, and that risk work takes a lot longer time. So there are pros and cons, but
yeah, beautiful. Yeah, accessibility and inclusivity. Yeah, really powerful key words, because often the overwhelm of the SMB is they're stuck at the start line. Right. And that's been the case. And, you know, I spent 21 years in enterprise, and an enterprise mindset just doesn't work for the SMB. They don't have the mechanics and the engineers inside their organization 95% of the time, at least in this part of the world. Then they need to have this on-ramp. And so, yeah, I love the key words there. James, anything to add to that to round it out?
Yeah, like I've been back in this framework for quite a while because it was quite obvious we were lacking a pragmatic and digestible framework for SMB. And that goes for both the tech partners delivering it and the end client. And I'm a business owner, I've got an operational and sales mind, I don't have a technical mind. We've discussed the other frameworks. They are quite technical, and it's very hard to digest as a small business owner when we've got multiple things that we're trying to juggle to then have to worry about this sort of level of governance, risk and compliance. And so it's aimed at not needing to know all of those kinds of details, being backed by having a technical specialist being able to deliver it for you. And on the other side, the tech partners, whatever flavor they come in and you're engaged with, this sort of framework makes it more affordable to deliver, like Fiona was touching on, because the tech partners can actually structure their delivery a lot more in a scaled way. They can create packages that actually enable them to deliver it more effectively and efficiently. And you also know what you're getting, compared to when it's more broad and more bespoke and specific that happens in the much larger businesses. And so it's actually making cybersecurity in general more affordable and accessible that way. And it's also framing up for the vendors what they need to deliver by default down in this part of the world as well. So we're not getting all these functions and features at an enterprise level and paying more for it. We're targeting being able to cover more things more broadly. That's probably the other part of the framework that attracts me as a business owner, is not just its technical controls, like Essential 8 as an example. It's all technical, it's all behind the scenes. This has policy and education as a part of it as well. And it's not just policy, big policies that we'd expect in the mid-market and enterprise space. It's actually applicable stuff that we should know in our small businesses anyway. Forces good conversations and thought processes to happen, not just with your technology specialist, but also you as a business and how you're operating and what sort of risks you may have that you probably haven't thought about. Probably your IT partner hasn't spoken to you about before because they don't necessarily know how to approach it in a way that you're going to understand, because we've come from that sort of technical side. So it opens up a lot of conversations that haven't been happening in the past.
Yeah, that's a really powerful perspective. So it's the common language. It allows an MSP and a technical support specialist to build programs of work that are certifiable and consistent and non-subjective. So that's, those we don't have on the call today are the technology vendors and the distributors and others that also struggle with that conversation, right? They've had to lead with tech or, here, implement this backup thing or this endpoint thing or whatever. And the SMB doesn't understand that. They don't want to understand the technical details of how this thing works, but they do want to know that it is being done to a standard or AKA a safety certificate. They can get in their digital vehicle and drive it. So that's really cool. And while you got the mic, James, we might then get into the process of the journey that you guinea pigged or simulated. Tell us a little bit about the journey. So the bronze to diamond at a high level, what was the starting process and where are you today?
A really high level. I'll start with why I'm doing this. Why I haven't joined and jumped on this journey was two main reasons. I'm a small business. I have clients, and I know enough that I need to be responsible in protecting their data and protecting my own business from cyber criminals and the impacts that they can have. And then I wanted to go through this journey to learn, but also then share all the learnings and spotlight this as a journey, to show that if I can do it, then anyone else can really do it, and how you get there. And so the process really started with me on my own at the bronze silver level, that I felt I was capable enough because I've got enough technical expertise and I've got enough knowledge of this stuff that I could work to that baseline level. But then going up to the sort of gold and heading into platinum and diamond, I knew I was out of my depth in the technical side, and I wanted the GRC from like Luke to actually walk me through it and think about things in a different way, because I knew as soon as I was getting to the auditing part with Fiona, I was going to get torn to shreds. So I needed to make sure that I was operating at that sort of level. And that level of accountability as you step up through the journey is actually a good thing. I think, and when I started out, and I've never been through an audit before, you get a bit hesitant around that. I can see a lot of partners have gotten gold, which is awesome. They should be operating at platinum and diamond. But what's holding them back is they're worried about getting audited. And that flip is actually a really good process to go through, of self-implementation, getting some help, and then having the independent auditor wasn't as scary as I first assumed. Fiona's a lovely person that will give feedback, and not only is she looking at the evidence for my business and making sure that I'm meeting the standards, she's actually helping me show whether the people that I've engaged with are actually doing their job. And that's very hard in the SMB space. When I'm a client, I'm looking at my tech partner. We trust them; they're good people, but are they actually doing the right thing? Are they doing the right job? And that step up into being audited is a very great thing, to get that independent review, get some feedback on better things we could do for the future, which is very helpful. And then the cross check of my partner's good, or they're not living up to the standard that I'm assuming that they are. It helps with those sort of conversations and transparency as well.
Yeah, so there is let's say, an independently verified destination or goal that MSPs and tech partners might aim for, again, depending on the readiness and maturity level that they're at, because it gives them a level of, hey, someone else has got to mark this homework as well, right? So now let's have a chat, and Wayne, I might throw to you here. Even at bronze, tell us about some of the quality assurance mechanisms that are still built into that, of course, to make the certification legitimate.
Look, honestly, some of the very first thing that is in the standard right across all levels is that the customer must have an MSP or a technology provider. And that means that either A, the customer has that relationship with somebody like myself or another MSP, or they have the internal skills to do that. Now, when SMB 1001 first came out, I know a lot of MSPs were like, but wait, I'm an MSP, so what, does that mean I have to have somebody else look after me? And there was all that confusion around that. And it was actually very quickly clarified that no, if you have the internal skills, you don't need that. You can say, I have those skills, that's fine. In James's case, he doesn't have those skills, and I've helped fulfill that role on that front. Some of the other basics that we've got within there basically just set a baseline of I would say the good workings for a good cybersecurity posture. Things such as making sure that you have, solid passwords in MFA are the basics that everybody should have without even thinking. And so I think the getting on at bronze is, I know that it's been pitched in the past, it's ideal for the flower shop owner. Okay. And the mindset is that it shouldn't be onerous for a one-person business to get onto bronze. Anybody should be able to do that. And you've got to kind of question that if they're not, then maybe they're not going to be in business too long in all reality, because they are going to have a breach. And that's the thing that I think that many people think about in the SMB space. And I'm going a little off tangent here, right? But most SMB business owners have a mindset of, it won't happen to me. I don't have anything of value that a hacker would want. And the problem that we face is that the hacker doesn't know who they're targeting until they get in. And they might have the Commonwealth Bank on the line, literally, or they might have a flower shop owner. They don't know until they breach your systems. And when they do, that's when the fun begins. So I think that getting on board at bronze means that customers can at least get, as I said earlier, on the bus. We get moving.
Yeah, and the power of AI, of course, is going to amplify the first checks before the humans then come in and actually finish the job. But you're right, the 7 fundamental controls here, anyone with an internet connection in today's age should actually have. Tell us about the company director attestation process at bronze and silver, James, still.
So it's all on me as a business owner to say that I'm actually doing something. And so while I got the support around me and provided the information, I've got to actually understand it and then say that that's what's implemented in my business, and that's a really good check, because a lot of the time, us as small business owners, we've got experts around us, we trust them, and especially when it's not in our comfort zone, we don't understand enough, and we're busy people and we don't stop and think about it or ask enough questions because someone else has got it. These kinds of things we really need to know. We need to know if our tech partner is actually doing the job. We need to know what our risks are. We need to know what's actually put in place to mitigate those risks. So the attestation component is that sign off of looking at the evidence that we've been given by our tech partner, and then submitting that as our attestation against the certification level. And I think it's a great step, because we're doing that with insurance anyway, and because whatever we're submitting, whether someone's provided us information or not, we're the ones that are signing off. It's very much like when we're submitting our taxes, our accountant might be submitting it and providing all the information, but at the end of the day, we're actually the ones that are signing off on it. And so owning that, I think, is a great step. You don't need to be technical to understand this, but it creates that conversation that you can ask more questions.
Yeah, nice. So accountability still rests with the risk owner, right? In this case, which is built into the standard. And anything you want to add to that, Luke or Fee, at the lower levels of the certification process?
I think that question, I think the last couple of speakers have talked about around, I think there has been a misconception for a long time, and a welcome misconception in a lot of ways for small businesses, that doesn't my IT service provider manage all my security? And the reality is your IT provider does not own your security controls. If your business is hacked, it's your brand, it's your details, and it's your money they'll steal, or your intellectual property, or your children's school data or whatever it might be. So taking that ownership of, there is a bridge for many companies to cross over when it comes to, yes, we outsource to an IT service provider and we use such and such, and they promise to look after our security, and being asked personally, okay, director, do you have MFA for all do you know what all your assets are to start with? And do you know which one of those is being backed up and where? Now, oh, yeah, they've promised that in the contract. Well, let's go and have a little chat with them and find out where that is and what's happening. And I think it's a really important step that an audit can bring. Audits are not just to judge you and to fail you or pass you. It's a conversation that needs to happen. We ask the questions. It's a bit like going for your driver's test. You've read the books, you've done a few lessons with your mum or your instructor, and then you're in the driver's seat with that driving test, and everyone will remember their very first driving test where they went to get their Ps or whatever it is, and they're in that car and that person is actually looking at you and saying, well, how do you turn this corner? And now it's on you. And then you have to go away and drive that car safely and responsibly like you do for your business. You really, maybe some of those rules didn't really sink in until you actually got in the car with that final to do that final test. But I think the audit brings that level of motivation to you as a director to actually understand, and it is okay to not have all of the controls in place. I think that's a really important thing for most businesses to understand. Wanting to get certified brings questions and brings some gaps which need to be solved, but there are questions that need to be asked. When an auditor asks you a question, if you don't know the answer, then let's go and ask your MSP, and they are good questions to ask. And sometimes, and this is important for a lot of small businesses, your MSP or your IT service provider may reasonably say to you, we don't do that for you because it's not part of the current contract, right? It's something which has never been discussed, and what you're asking them to do is a little bit more, so you might need to adjust those services. So having those expectations clear. So there are security controls you need to have in place. An audit can, or this, even just self-assessing against the standard, can help you ask those questions. And getting those answers may mean a few adjustments, and that's a really healthy process, and will educate you along the way. And I really love seeing that when businesses go through the process. Like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go and do that. Oh, well, now I know what that's about, and now I'm really comfortable asking that question. So if you change IT service providers, you can ask the new one, hey, do you do these things? And you can have that ready to go.
Yeah, so it's like I worked in a big assurance firm for 7 or so years, and one of the energies that you bring into an internal audit or even any audit role, which is what you're describing, is this critical friend relationship, not a police where they're trying to prove you wrong, but it's actually they're there to help you. And if you listen to them in the same way as a driving instructor is there to help you, not to tell you you're doing it wrong. They don't want you to crash. Of course, they want you to reach your destination safely. So yeah, nice addition. Thanks, Fee. And look, tell us how the controls or the requirements of SMB 1001 actually mature as you move from bronze to gold, for example, from the TSS or the Technical Security Solution Specialist.
There's a few layers to that question. When looking at it, some of the controls span multiple levels. Some cover bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. Sometimes there's one control for gold and platinum, a different one for diamond. And that helps demonstrate the maturity that you're doing something just that little bit more and that little bit more and that little bit more to improve the posture, improve the resilience, improve your documentation to demonstrate you're working at that higher level. If we look at, say, look at the control around tabletop exercises or having an incident response plan. For gold and platinum, you're required to have a plan. For diamond, you're required to test it. I'd love to see that drag down to the next level, but that's a conversation in front of the time. But you've got to start somewhere. And the laddering of those controls is what's good. The implementation of the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC control this year was fantastic. SPF and DKIM was brought in at silver and DMARC was brought in at gold plus, and they aren't hard controls. But as you progress up, you're starting to tighten those little things that give you that extra little bit of an edge. And that's where it provides the advantage, because it's not that much more of a step, not much more, not much more. It's like a stretch goal. And it removes some of the friction when you go, hey, we want to take you from gold to platinum. it's going to be another 2 days work. Do you want it? And we get it audited and we get it validated.
And would you typically, on the incident response plan versus testing, is there anything stopping an entity, an SMB or MSP, actually testing it at gold still?
No. I would encourage every organization to run tabletop exercises. One of the phrases or quotes I regularly fall back to is, in the event of a crisis, you do not rise to the occasion. You default to your level of training. If you've never been taught how to do CPR and you need to do CPR, are you just punching their chest? That's all that matters. If you haven't been taught to put out a fuel fire and use the wrong extinguisher, that fuel fire is now everywhere. So understanding what to do, where to find the document, how to escalate, how to respond is critical in incident. And the standard doesn't stop you doing it. This is why you can do more. It's a place to start. You can always do a little bit more. And if you've done it, then, hey, do we look at doing diamond? Do we look at doing platinum? Do we look at going, what else?
Yeah, very cool. And it's like it moves from implied to confident, right? So you can have a very confident gold, sophisticated structure, or you can have the base in there. You still got insurance, you've still got the things that will help you become resilient, but not necessarily validated. Yeah,
exactly. One of the other things to add is the fact that as the CyberCert AI organization will conduct randomized assessments on organizations to verify that they have actually implemented bronze, silver, or gold to the level they've attested to, because they've signed a legal document. It's a contract. So there'll be random checks to verify and validate, which it helps demonstrate that the entire ecosystem is being managed and governed at a level that aligns to the risk. It doesn't happen in every single business, but you're going to find those who are trying to cheat the system.
Yeah, very good. And this is the flexibility that exists in the architecture that when you work with yourself and Wayne and James and Fee, that it sets the rules, right? But in terms of the implementation and the way in which you bring that to life or instantiate that, really depends on the sophistication and the necessity of the sector or the size of the organization, the location, the geos, the interactions of that, right?
Also understanding, like, I love the SMB 100 standard. It's good for what it does. It's also understanding where it doesn't fit. Like in OT environments, you're running equipment that's 25 years old that's still running Windows XP. It doesn't work there.
You have to architect it. Yeah, that's right.
You've got to know the right questions to ask.
Very good. And just on that, this is an open question to the group. What was surprisingly hard as you moved through the levels?
Honestly, my biggest fear in all of this was the audit. I've been doing technical work for years and years and years. I've typically been the auditor checking things, but having somebody else check my work, that was my biggest fear. And Fiona was really awesome with that, because she did, maybe she might walk through the process, but she did a pre-audit, which kind of gave us a few things to go and look for. And then we were able to come back together and have most of the information she needed when she said, okay, now we're doing the real thing. So having one's work audited is probably the most intimidating thing for any MSP or technical person out there, because we always think, what if we've missed something? Okay. And, we don't want to miss something. That's just a technical mindset. But that was my biggest fear in all of this. And Fiona was absolutely awesome with it. And I did not need to be worried. We had everything dotted and crossed, and it was a good process.
I can think of two, like the system we use, which was Fiona's Assuredly Suite, certainly streamlined the evidence collection, the evidence positioning, what was supposed to go where, what answered what question. It made it so much easier to track and manage.
Right.
Part I've found always to be challenging is working with the organizations and, we're using this product to achieve this outcome because the vendor told us it does that. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So many products are sold on meeting an outcome where it aligns what the vendor interprets that outcome to mean, not that it aligns to, as an example, application control in SMB 1001. products have different outcomes. They call it the same thing, but there's no regulatory body saying what is and what is not application control. So the interpretive outcome there is what matters. And the challenge is having to explain to some of these partners and vendors that no, just because your product says it does that, doesn't mean it actually does what's required of the standard.
Yeah, so there's two parts to that, isn't there? There's the simplicity that a GRC or a security program platform provides to be able to manage the program of work, the evidence collection and the readiness for audit and attestation. So that's a really good one. And then, of course, digging into the legitimacy of a technology vendor's claims that it actually meets a particular standard, SMB 1001 or otherwise. And, I'm quite proud to say that actually some of these technology vendors are moving through aligning specifically their stack to the requirements, and therefore they can update those as the standard evolves. What else, James or Fee? What did you find surprisingly hard through the process?
It's lovely to hear feedback from Wayne that the process is good. I have been told I have a good style about me, and all auditors will have a different style. And unfortunately, when you get some junior auditors, that it can be a little bit clunky, and they can get a little bit more black and white. The process we follow is very clear. So it's 4 steps. We have a 30-minute kickoff meeting with you. Then we will do a document review, and that will be whatever you have collated. So presumably, and importantly, you will have looked at the controls already, and you would have documented where you're at. And then we will review that, whatever form that's in. And then we will give you some feedback, and then we will have the meeting to do the audit, where we will tell you up front where we think you might be missing some things based on that additional thing. So you can scurry off and get those in, or you can reinterpret those in the way. Because we do, as auditors, also need to understand your business. I think the biggest challenge at the moment, they're broad controls. So there are some controls in there that says enable MFA for all accounts, for example. Now, what does all accounts mean? That's a conversation that I typically have up front. It's your asset list. What are all the software assets? Now, yes, you may have a piece of a cloud account that you log in and you put your company's Christmas photos on, and that doesn't have MFA, but you have MFA for the other, 27 pieces of software. So do you pass? That is often a question. That's the biggest challenge, I think. And that goes the same for backups. Backups is an important thing. You need to back up your things. Do you need to back up the Christmas photos? Probably not. Probably should be deleted. But they're anything like my Christmas parties now. And so I think one of the biggest challenges for businesses is really understanding their assets and being able to articulate to themselves, and then furthermore to that, to the auditor, that actually these are the assets that we hold our confidential information. These are the ones that are in scope of this assessment. This is our business. Because I think, and I'm sure CyberCert agree, but there is a little bit of leeway there to say, we can pass you as auditors saying you have MFA for everything if it is for all of your business assets. Yes, there is SurveyMonkey. Yes, there are some other little things. And I think that that's often a challenge, because the biggest challenge is, one, the asset lists aren't most often not complete. Even when they have done their work, I will 98% of the time find an asset through the process and go, oh, you haven't put that in your list. And they're like, oh, that list left out. So being really comprehensive, all your software that you use, and then understanding MFA and doing that little bit of work up front to go, you don't have to do the backups for everything. Some of your service providers, your SaaS providers will have backups, but you need to go and look at that contract and have a little checklist to say, yeah, we've looked at the contract, and I think that's been a challenge. Not a challenge, I guess, but just I think that's two really important parts of the process for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, scoping, very, very good, because it often, if an SMB who doesn't understand the control and the intent of the control, and they can assume that it's not applicable, they will descope it, right? And the power of SMB 1001 by default, its nature is that it's not descopable. It can be, you can request clarification from DSI, SMBs can. But yeah, that is the nature of the standard. And because, there's even some of the seemingly less risky services where there's photos and those sorts of things. If the photos are compromised and then they're downloaded, and next thing there's a malicious file that's moving across the organization because it was seemingly low risk, then that's the sort of subjectivity that we need to remove from that SMB process that, a risk-based approach will solve. So it's a good point. And the digital asset register, of course, comes in specifically at gold, SMB 1001 tier 3, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a good, clear understanding of what your digital and software assets are at bronze and silver.
Rule one of good cybersecurity: unless you know what you have, you cannot protect it.
Yeah, you can't see it, you can't protect it. Yeah, yeah. James, do you want to add to that? What was the surprisingly hardest thing for you in this process?
The detail. So as a business owner, I got a business to run and make money. And while I'm in this space, and obviously I probably know more about this stuff than the average business owner because of coming out of the industry and being involved in this stuff, is sitting through and having to think about all this detail. Asset register is a great thing, a great example of that. While I might be mature and have all that in place, just going through to the level of detail to think about all the different, should we back that up? Does it require MFA? Can we even do MFA? All of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of detail to comprehend. It's a good process to go through. Even the asset register in itself is a good exercise because it uncovers, like what Fiona said, it uncovers things that you haven't thought of. So not even from a data and security side of, we've got all this stuff and we're spending all this money. When was the last time you actually looked at your digital footprint and how much money you're spending across all of these different things? And like a lot of things, a lot of small business owners assume their IT service provider, their MSP, their TSP knows everything, but they don't. They've got a scope that they're working to and they've got control over certain things. They won't know if you've gone and bought this random SaaS application with your credit card and they've had nothing to do with it. They won't know that it exists. And so going through those, while very painful and tedious, are actually very valuable on the other side through the process. Because if you actually look at it as a business operations activity, you can uncover a lot of process that you haven't thought about, a lot of spend that you haven't thought about, a lot of risks that you haven't thought about, and having the right partners made it easy for me to go through, even though it might be a little difficult and that don't want to talk or don't want to dive into some of that detail. Having the conversations with the right people created a lot of value that can help the business into the future.
Yeah, nice. And so that, just shifting gears slightly, what's the difference then, the process, the certification process, as you go from gold to platinum and diamond? What's the bouncing ball before Fee comes in and guides you through that independent verification?
Very much the partners. Like it's what starts to happen is the amount of controls ramp up. You need to start getting a bit more rigorous around the project planning because there's more moving pieces. So having that right partner that can guide you through the process and take you through a step-by-step project is invaluable. Because if you just randomly go from gold, where I've signed off on all my stuff and it's good to go, and you start heading into an audit, you want to do it in a very structured manner because there's a lot more conversations, there's a lot more policy and business level conversations that start happening out of that. You don't want to have these sporadic, random ad hoc conversations. You want it in a structured manner. And that sort of fear of the auditor is actually a good thing, even though there's nothing to fear. But that creates all of a sudden there's deadlines, there's accountability. So going through the process to get to that point, it does go up a level, but so does the maturity around how you affect everything and how you implement everything as well.
And tell us about the evidence fee. So independent verification organizations, IVOs, come in at platinum and diamond. What sort of evidence did you ask Wayne to show you, let's say, for like technical suitability for meeting a platinum or diamond audit?
When we collect evidence, we're obtaining the evidence through either interviewing key personnel, so verbal discussions, reviewing documents, procedures, records, walking through the process with them online or walking through an online system, or even reviewing third-party reports in some instances if you've had a pen test or if your service provider's had a pen test. So there are screenshots, you can redact certain amounts of information, but audits should always be two components. One is actually getting the evidence in terms of the screenshots, the reports, the documents, or viewing the system. So we can check each control is in place, but also an important part is our discussions with people so that we understand that the processes that you say are in place, that policy that you have is well understood. And experienced auditors pick up very quickly where they can tell very easily when you just downloaded a policy off the internet yesterday. And some companies get caught out by that a bit because they missed a little word from another company's policy document, or, you know, there's ways in which we can tell how recent that document's been implemented. So it is about checking the people and the processes as well as, so that's why the discussions are important, but the evidence is really, do you have this control? Can you show us how that's done? Do you have MFA for your assets? A great response would be, firstly, yes, auditor, let me show you my asset register. I've ticked off all of our assets where we contain all of our confidential information, and that you can see they all have MFA. And then I would say, great, could you open asset A or B? And you would do that and MFA would come up, or you would show me a screen showing how your Azure authentication applies to those assets every time, and that company credential. Now, small business owners may not be able to do that. Often, you know, if they're using an IT service provider to manage all their IT. So during the kickoff meeting, we'll discuss who needs to be in that next session and maybe bring those people along to that session.
Yeah, so a bit of design and operating effectiveness, hey, making sure the controls are actually in there okay, but they're working. They're working as intended.
They're working as intended. And we've got to remember that we only have a certain amount of time to audit. Yes, you know, the idea of assurance in general, not just CyberCert certification, but assurance in general, like having someone govern, you know, do GRC or compliance or govern or do some assurance, is really about finding out how likely it is that you are going to operate good security controls that protect your organization. And we want that likelihood to be high. The answer, you know, we're not doing assurance to guarantee you are 100% secure. We're increasing the likelihood of you having a really secure business. And so that's why certification and assurance processes are really healthy, because you've got experts who are coming to help you on that journey, making sure that you really do have that likelihood. And I think for smaller businesses and directors who aren't, you know, haven't spent 20 years in GRC roles in big organizations who know how to do that, an audit is a great way of helping them through that.
Nice. And Wayne, one for you, once the certification is done, like James has been awarded the Diamond certification, how does an MSP supporting that, or the technical support specialist, how do you keep the certification active throughout the year before the next certification process?
It's easy. I mean, you know, part of the certification process, they want to see the proof of what you've done. But that proof is a resultant of the processes you've built to get to that point. You just keep running the processes that you're still doing. It's not hard. And as part of your processes, you need to make sure that you're looking out for different attack vectors and things like that. But it's actually not too hard to keep things running once you get that process done. It's almost like a cookie cutter. I don't want to use that term, but you know, it's not hard.
It's a bit like having a house, and you've got security controls on your house. So you've got a front door lock and a security pad. Maybe you've got barbed wire out the front. And, you know, inside of the house, you've got privacy locks on your internal doors. Maybe you've got a safe where you keep your money in your bedroom, somewhere like that. They are all controls. And security controls are the same, but for your business. So you need a safe. And are you putting your data into an encrypted box? Have you got locks on your doors? Is that security keypad with the extra numbers at your front door? Are those things in place? So once they're in place, you should, if you're operating a business, that everyone should be aware these are important controls. So if the safe goes missing or the door's broken, the, you know, education in your business should, you know, either yourself and a couple of people who work with you or your broader business should say, hey, something's broken.
Yeah. The follow on there is that you've got these controls, you spent the time and investment to put them in. So to follow on from Fiona's analogy, if you go and put another side door in, make sure you're putting equivalent controls on it. Make sure that you've got the lock and the keypad next to it as well. Don't just go and install a mesh fly screen and go, we're good now. To work on everywhere around the house, just do the next bit. Make sure that the level you've set, that everything new comes in at the same level or better.
And don't turn the front alarm system off and think that you're still certified, right? So, James, what do you advise, and even what do you look for to give you confidence as the business owner, and what should MSPs and partners look for to know that what they're doing is actually continually meeting the standard and certification obligations?
You've got to go into it with a continual improvement mindset and a continual accountability mindset, and don't treat this as a one-off project. That's the first thing. So as a business owner, I'm not just getting one of these certs and I'm done and that's it. If you go into that mindset, then you're going to shut off the learning. Things keep changing and evolving, and you'll be in a bad spot. And that goes for the technical support providers as well, that they need to treat this as an ongoing thing as well. And as a business owner, I should be expecting my tech partner to be providing me with reporting. And if I'm not, I should be asking for it. And this is a challenge from both sides. In the past, a lot of partners don't provide reporting because the clients don't read it or want it, or they don't ask for it, or they don't demand it. And from the other side, the clients don't know that they should be getting this stuff, or it's possible, because they might not have had the sort of partners that have delivered that sort of maturity before. But as Wayne said, a lot of these controls are quite simple from a technical spot. Once a tech partner's putting it in, they should have ongoing management practices in place. And this is where you as a client need to look at actually paying someone to manage it. That's the other thing. A lot of the small micro and the immature small companies only want break fix type work, pay by the hour, treat their tech partner as a tradie that I only bring you out when something's broken. Well, no one's managing it. No one's looking at it. We don't know if a window's been smashed in the back room unless you come and tell us.
Yeah, someone's looking at it. Yeah.
Sorry, go for James.
And a lot of this stuff, you won't know if it's broken or not until someone actually attacks you and gets in.
Right, yeah.
Manage and maintain what you've put in. Like when I first put in diamonds around this time last year, it took me several days. So I was going, okay, let's go and build, check, validate every control. Had the initial meeting with Fiona. She went, you haven't done this, you haven't done this, you haven't done this, fix this. And I went back and fixed it. And we came back and went, cool, you're good. That took me days. I'm in the midst of doing my diamond again now, and I'll put the submission in. It took me about 4 hours. The longest thing, me going and double checking, going, no, my SPF DMARC DKIM has been put in correctly. Okay, I need to make an AI policy. I've got one of those. All those various things were going check and validate. The longest part was writing the notes into the CyberCert portal of how I'm meeting the control. It wasn't implementing the control or designing a piece of paperwork. It was literally typing, okay, let's do that. And to say, yes, here's the evidence that I have met this requirement.
Nice.
The other thing to do is, my recommendation to maintain your certification would be to, if you're a one-person business, spin around in your chair and hold a meeting with yourself once a quarter. If you're 2 to 3, have it with the team. If you've got an MSP, have it with them once a quarter. Schedule it in for 1 hour and open up your assessment in Assuredly or your report or the list of controls and flick through them. It'll take you less than an hour to. Has anything changed? The big question will be, have we got any new assets? Has anyone subscribed to any new SaaS providers? Is there anything changing in our asset base? Like an asset's been physical locations, software, computer hardware, anything. If it's not changed, or if it has changed, you've got to assess those controls again. But if there's no change, then is everything still working well? Have we got those controls? That's a good way. Once a quarter, it's for a couple of hours, once a quarter. That would be fine.
It's a really good habit. And again, the analogy of the owner of the vehicle, their job is they've got to check the tire pressure, right? They don't need to be the tire mechanics. But my goodness, if you're driving around on a flat, that's not the tire mechanic's problem. It's like, check the tires before you get in this thing. You know, there's a couple of habits and literacy that owners still need to have around cybersecurity, even though you're not the cyber expert. Do you want to add to that?
I'm just going to say, one of the things that strikes me through all of this that is different, we talked about the digital asset register being mandatory at high levels, but the subtext of even level 1 at bronze is you must have a digital asset register. One of the controls in level 1 is implement a backup and recovery strategy for important digital assets. Mm-hmm. How do you know that you've got that unless you've got an asset register? Mm-hmm. And so where I'm going with this with some of my clients is I'm saying, okay, well, before we decide on a new digital asset, you know, we're going to go and use Canva, for instance, that has to be approved internally. Even if it's only a small 3-person company, the boss has to go, yeah, we're going to do that. Gets added to the digital asset register. Mm. And a lot of people, I think, a lot of SMB MSPs are concerned about this concept of the digital asset register. Oh my gosh, I've got to do this and this. And it's an Excel spreadsheet at a bare minimum. Simply listing all of the things that you've got, who's controlling them, where they're being backed up. If there's MFA, there's a number of different columns you put in there. And I think this is one of the biggest things, because that's the source of truth you can go to. That's where Fiona has several times said that's where she goes to when she's doing the audit. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to try and communicate that a little bit more, that getting this digital asset register is the baseline.
Yeah.
Customers wouldn't go paying bills if they didn't get an invoice first. And that digital asset register is that baseline that they need to start with.
Yeah, very cool. You know, the standard defines what to do and really how to do it in a certain extent, but it doesn't give you the program of work. And what we're talking about is the consulting work of current state, target state, how to get there. And yes, fundamentally, consultant will say, what are we looking at here? What's the scope of this thing that we need to improve, gaps, fallouts? And team, we could keep going for days and days, and there's probably a series in this, but what was one thing you wish you knew at the start that you know now?
This will sound like I'm trying to circumvent controls, but it's not the intent.
In my notepad.
Yeah, understanding the key words used in the control statements. If, should, may, must. Those are the key words you have to pay attention to, because that determines the how, the what, and in some cases, the when. So if it says you must do this, that is the end of the question. Like, you are going to do this or you do not pass. One of the modifications to controls around password management this year is, if feasible, integrate with the DLP or CASB solution. Mm-hmm. The keyword is feasible. Do you have a CASB? No. Do you have DLP? No. Guess what you don't have to do? So it's understanding those keywords. I've had a client ring me and go, oh, we've got to put a CASB in. What do we buy? I went, do you have one now? No? Okay. You should look at one longer term, but you don't have to put one into pass. Now, nice. The laddering of the framework may change that in the future. It may go, hey, have a CASB at Diamond. But that is a later problem. Now, you don't have to have one.
And you're right. And maybe as in the same way that EDR is now written into the standard for 2026, maybe CASB becomes more accessible and easy and integrated, and it becomes a must in future. But yeah, good point. Others, what was one thing you know now you wish you knew at the start?
Auditors are not scary. They're
Nice.
there to work with you and get you across the line. They're there to help provide their wisdom and their guidance on things that you might have missed. It sounds wrong, but, you know, as I said, I was quite nervous about that. And, you know, it's something that you didn't have to be. We're all on the same team. We're all on the same team to get this customer across the line and on that journey.
Thanks, Wayne. James?
Probably not what I didn't know going into all of this, but from a business owner's perspective, it really validated going through this process. I did a lot faster than the average client's going to do it because I sort of know my stuff, and I went and did this deliberately. But the sooner you get started with this, at whatever level it makes sense, even if you're going in at the bronze level, is embedding the mindset of that continual improvement and building foundations on at a time. I think too many people, partners and clients, see this as a very all or nothing. If we can't go and get everything at the top level, then don't start. But actually, it's more important to just start and continually add, because you're going to be better off tomorrow than you were today, let alone yesterday. And we've all got sort of tight budgets as well in the SMB world, got multiple priorities that we're juggling. And so it's more important to then really break this down into bite-sized chunks. If we've got nothing, well, we're better off starting with bronze than worrying about getting ready and right to do gold, let alone platinum and diamond.
Say again, Luke.
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, nice. And exactly, if the front door is wide open because you're waiting to get the electric fence and everything else in the meantime, well, all your stuff's gone, while you're waiting to get to that diamond level or even more. Fee, what's one thing you know now as part of this process that you wish you knew earlier? You've done a few of these, but
yeah, I can't think of one actually. I've been thinking what would I want to know.
What advice would you give?
What advice would I give? I think my thing, what auditors want to know, like one of the main things we need to know is, what are your assets? And it's very important. It's more important than you would think. And if I go back to the analogy on the house, if you had all of your gold bars in your house, let's assume that your confidential information or things you're trying to protect are gold bars, you wouldn't take your gold bars down the road and pop them in another house without checking the locks. And I think that is a really key issue for many businesses, medium and even large businesses across the world, where employees are giving their gold bars to big SaaS providers and assuming they're secure. But when you look at the fine print, actually, some of the biggest ones don't provide backups. That's an extra paid for service. Yeah. So I think that's my advice, is that asset register, keep it simple to start with. What are all the things? And you want to know, as a business owner, I'm a business owner, you want to know what you're spending your money on anyway. How much are you spending on all this? Does it do the same thing? And then go, does it have MFA? Are they backing it up? They're often on look up, type into Google, name of company, security white paper, security controls. They will tell you. They'll make a promise somewhere, and in your license terms, you should really look at whether you. Because a lot of small businesses subscribe to the sort of like the starter package. It might be free software. It might be just their base plan. So just be a little bit careful about that when you're assuming that they're doing backups for you for free. That's good advice.
Very good. So know your assets, know your stuff. If you don't know your stuff, you don't know what to secure. Yeah, very cool. So thank you all. We might leave it here today. Obviously, collaboration is the key to SMB cyber success here. Even if you're a one-person shop, there's a lot of resources and capabilities and teams around this CyberCert ecosystem to help them. Documentation online. As you move through the levels, start to reach out to these guys and girls to help you along the journey, because as it matures from base technical to more mature procedural and people controls and audit readiness, we want to make sure that we have critical friends there along the way. So with that, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for guinea pigging and simulating the journey and sharing your insights. And any final words? How can people find you?
I think the one thing I'd leave off for partners and clients is your future self will thank you if you get on this journey. It's not a matter of if you're going to have some form of an incident. You're going to have something, It's a matter of when. And the sooner you get on this journey and start uplifting yourself and educating yourself, you're going to avoid things that you probably don't even know you've avoided. And you're a small business owner, your reputation matters. You've got responsibilities for yourself, your employees, and your customers. That this is actually quite critical. It's not a just an IT thing that's hidden away and it doesn't really affect you. This is real life stuff that if you get hit, it can be very serious, can cause you a lot of stress, financial impacts, reputational damage. And a lot of the time it can be avoided by putting in these sort of baseline controls that we've been talking about through the lower levels of the standards. And even if you don't fully trust that because you haven't seen it, you haven't experienced it, plenty of people have, and it can be devastating. And we all do what we do, and all the partners out there do it for you to prevent that. And so take that on and run it with it. And for the partners, take this more seriously as well.
Nice.
You're looking after all of this economy. We all know that you care and you sacrifice, and you've done late nights to look after your clients and save the day many times and help them. But you've got to lift your maturity quite significantly because you're a bigger target than they are.
Yes.
Unlike the drive-bys that happen to the small businesses, you're directly targeted because you have the keys to the castle. So start acting like it. Yeah, there's a lot of great people that have stepped up and they've lifted to gold. Push yourself, go to diamond, go through the auditing process, be more mature, get the feedback, learn from that process, and then take that learning and help your end customers. And everyone's going to be better off for it because at the moment it's the cyber criminals that are winning, and everyone else is the ones that are being severely impacted when it happens. And a lot of it we can avoid through just doing some basic stuff and doing it well.
Nice. Don't be the slowest beast in the herd or the weakest link in the chain. And with that, thank you, James at TSP Advisory, Luke at Aegis Cybersecurity, Wayne at the Cyber Advisory, and Fiona at Assuredly. Thank you so much, all. Happy days.